The gunshot cracked through the dry Arizona air just as Josephine Grant threw herself between the child and the runaway horse. Her arms spread wide like wings as the terrified animal bore down on them with wild eyes and flashing hooves. Winslow, Arizona had seen its share of chaos in the summer of 1883, but this particular Tuesday afternoon seemed determined to outdo them all. The main street was packed with townsfolk going about their business when a string of firecrackers exploded near the livery stable, spoking every horse within earshot. Most riders managed to control their mounts, but one bay stallion had torn free from its hitching post and was now charging straight toward the mercantile, where a small boy stood frozen in terror. Josephine had been carrying a basket of fresh bread from the bakery, her simple blue calico dress dusty from the day's heat. She was 22 years old, unmarried, and the schoolteacher's assistant, a position she had held for the past 3 years since arriving in Winslow from back east. The bread went flying as she lunged forward, her only thought to push the child out of harm's way. She managed to shove the boy toward the wooden sidewalk, but now she stood directly in the path of the charging animal with nowhere to go. The horse was 3 strides away when a figure in dusty leather chaps and a worn brown had appeared from seemingly nowhere. Strong arms wrapped around Josephine's waist and pulled her aside with such force that they both tumbled into the dirt. The stallion thundered past them, its hooves missing Josephine's skirt by mere inches. She found herself pressed against a solid chest, breathing hard, her heart hammering against her ribs. "You all right, miss?" The voice was deep and warm, tinged with concern. Josephine looked up into the most striking gray eyes she had ever seen, set in a tanned face covered with several days' worth of stubble. The man was perhaps 25, with dark hair that curled slightly at the edges beneath his hat. A star-shaped scar marked his left cheekbone, giving him a roguish appearance. "I think so," Josephine managed, suddenly aware that she was still in his arms. She pulled back slightly, though his hands remained steadily at her waist as if he was not quite ready to let go. "The boy, is he safe?" The cowboy glanced over at the sidewalk where the child was being comforted by his mother, who had rushed out of the mercantile. "He is fine, thanks to you." His eyes returned to her face with an intensity that made her breath catch. "That was the bravest and most foolish thing I have ever seen. You could have been killed." "I could not just stand there and watch him die," Josephine said, brushing dust from her skirts as she finally stood, though her legs felt unsteady. The cowboy rose with her, keeping one hand lightly on her elbow as if he thought she might fall. "No, I suppose you could not." Something shifted in his expression, a softness replacing the concern. "Name is Cole Quincy. I am new to Winslow, just signed on as deputy a week ago." "Josephine Grant," she replied, extending her hand. His grip was firm but gentle, calloused from hard work. She noticed he held on a moment longer than necessary before releasing her fingers. By now, a small crowd had gathered, and Sheriff Dalton had managed to catch the runaway horse. The child's mother was approaching with tears streaming down her face. "Miss Grant, oh Miss Grant, I do not know how to thank you. If you had not been there, if you had not acted so quickly." The woman could not finish, overcome with emotion. "It is all right, Mrs. Henderson. Tommy is safe. That is all that matters." Josephine gave the woman's hand a reassuring squeeze, then knelt down to the boy's level. "You were very brave, Tommy. But next time you hear loud noises, step inside a building right away, understand?" The 6-year-old nodded solemnly, his blue eyes still wide with shock. "Yes, Miss Grant." "Thank you for saving me." As the crowd dispersed and life slowly returned to normal on the dusty street, Josephine became aware that Cole Quincy had not left her side. He stood slightly behind her, his presence solid and reassuring. When she turned to him, she found him watching her with an expression she could not quite read. "You are sure you are not hurt?" he asked again. "That was quite a tumble we took." "I am fine, truly. A bit dusty, perhaps, but fine." She attempted to brush more dirt from her dress, succeeding only in spreading it around. "And you? I hope I did not injure you when you pulled me out of the way." A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "I have survived worse than a pretty schoolteacher falling on me, Miss Grant." Was he flirting with her? Josephine felt heat rise to her cheeks that had nothing to do with the Arizona sun. "Well, I should retrieve my basket. The bread is likely scattered across half the street by now. Allow me." Cole bent and picked up the woven basket, which had rolled against the side of the general store. Most of the loaves had indeed tumbled out, now covered in dust and dirt. "I am afraid these are not fit for eating anymore. Mrs. Miller will not be pleased." "I was bringing them for the church social tonight." Josephine sighed, taking the empty basket from him. "I suppose I will have to go back and explain what happened." "I will walk with you," Cole said, falling into step beside her. "I need to file a report with the sheriff anyway, and the bakery is on the way." They walked in silence for a moment, their boots creating small clouds of dust on the unpaved street. Josephine was acutely aware of his presence beside her, the way his shoulder occasionally brushed against hers, the steady rhythm of his gait. She snuck a glance at him from the corner of her eye and found him already looking at her. This time, she did not look away. "How long have you been in Winslow, Miss Grant?" Cole asked, his tone conversational but his eyes still intense. 3 years now. I came from Boston after my parents passed. My aunt lives here and helped me secure a position at the school." Josephine was not sure why she was telling him this. She was usually more reserved with strangers, but something about Cole Quincy made her want to talk. "And you? Where do you come from?" "Texas originally. Spent the last few years drifting from town to town, taking work where I could find it. Decided it was time to settle down somewhere, put down some roots. Winslow seemed like as good a place as any." He paused, then added with a slight smile, "Though I am liking it more by the minute." Josephine felt her heart flutter. "You have only been here a week. Give it time." "I do not think time will change my mind." His voice had dropped lower, more intimate, and Josephine knew they were no longer talking about the town. They reached the bakery, a small but tidy building with a painted sign showing a loaf of bread and a wheat shaft. Mrs. Miller, a plump woman in her 50s with flour permanently dusted on her apron, looked up in surprise when they entered. "Miss Grant, back so soon. I thought you were taking those loaves to the church." Her eyes shifted to Cole with open curiosity. "There was an incident on the street," Josephine explained. "A horse spooked and the bread was lost. I am terribly sorry, Mrs. Miller. I will pay for the loaves, of course." "Nonsense," Mrs. Miller waved her hand dismissively. "I heard the commotion. Everyone is talking about how you saved young Tommy Henderson. You are a hero, dear. I certainly will not charge you for bread after that." She bustled to the back room and returned with a fresh basket loaded with warm loaves. "Here, take these for the social, and not a word about payment." "Mrs. Miller, I cannot possibly. You can and you will. Now go on, both of you. I have pies to bake." The older woman shooed them toward the door with her flour-covered hands, a knowing smile on her face as she looked between Josephine and Cole. Back on the street, Cole took the basket from Josephine without asking. "Allow me to carry this. It is the least I can do after you showed such courage earlier." "You were the one who pulled me out of danger," Josephine pointed out, "and you were the one who put yourself in danger to save a child. That takes a special kind of person." Cole's expression turned serious. "Most people would have screamed or run. You did not hesitate." They walked toward the church at the far end of town, a simple white building with a modest steeple. Josephine found herself wishing the distance was longer, that they had more time to talk. She wanted to know everything about this mysterious cowboy who had appeared just when she needed him most. "Will you be attending the social tonight?" she asked, trying to keep her voice casual. "I was not planning on it," Cole admitted. "I am not much for socializing, but if you are going to be there, I might just change my mind." "I will be there. I help organize the refreshments." Josephine smiled at him. "You should come. It would be a good way to meet people in town, get to know your neighbors." "I suppose you are right." They had reached the church steps, and Cole handed her the basket. His fingers brushed against hers, sending a tingle up her arm. "I will see you tonight then, Miss Grant." "Please call me Josephine." "Josephine," he repeated, as if testing how her name felt in his mouth. "That is a beautiful name, suits you." He tipped his hat to her. "Until tonight." She watched him walk away, his long strides eating up the distance, his broad shoulders outlined against the afternoon sun. Only when he disappeared around the corner did she realize she was still standing on the church steps, basket in hand, smiling like a fool. "Well now, who was that handsome young man?" The voice made Josephine jump. She turned to find Reverend Thompson's wife, Clara, standing in the doorway with an amused expression. "The new deputy, Cole Quincy," Josephine said, climbing the steps to join the older woman. "He helped me today when there was trouble on the main street." "Helped you, did he?" Clara's eyes twinkled. "From the way he was looking at you, I would say he is hoping to help you with a lot more than just runaway horses." "Mrs. Thompson." Josephine felt her cheeks burn. "Oh, hush, child. I am old, not blind. That man is smitten, and unless I miss my guess, you are not entirely unaffected yourself." Clara took the basket and led the way inside. "Now come help me set up these tables. We have a social to prepare, and I suspect we will have at least one more attendee than we expected." The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of activity. Josephine helped arrange tables and chairs, laid out tablecloths, and set up the refreshment area. But through it all, her mind kept drifting back to gray eyes and strong arms, to the feeling of being held against a solid chest, to the way Cole had said her name. She barely knew the man, she reminded herself. They had spoken for perhaps 15 minutes in total. It was foolish to feel this way about someone she had just met. And yet she could not help the flutter of anticipation in her stomach at the thought of seeing him again tonight. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the town, people started arriving for the social. Lanterns were lit, casting a warm glow over the gathering. Musicians set up in the corner, a fiddle player and someone with a guitar. Tables groaned under the weight of food brought by various families, everything from fried chicken to apple pies. Josephine stood near the refreshment table in her best dress, a soft green cotton that brought out the color of her hazel eyes. She had taken extra care with her appearance tonight, pinning up her chestnut hair in a way that left soft curls framing her face. She told herself it had nothing to do with a certain deputy, but she knew she was lying. An hour passed. The social was in full swing, with couples dancing and children running between the tables. Josephine smiled and chatted with neighbors, poured lemonade and served cake, but her eyes kept drifting to the door. Had Cole changed his mind about coming? Perhaps he had just been being polite when he said he would attend. She was helping Mrs. Henderson with a spill when she felt someone watching her. She looked up and there he was, standing in the doorway, hat in hand. He had cleaned up since this afternoon, his face freshly shaved, his dark hair still damp and combed back. He wore a clean white shirt tucked into dark pants, a leather vest, and polished boots. But it was his eyes that held her, those striking gray eyes that found her immediately in the crowd and held her gaze with an intensity that made her forget to breathe. Cole crossed the room toward her, seemingly oblivious to the curious stares that followed him. He stopped directly in front of her, close enough that she could smell soap and leather and something uniquely him. "Josephine," he said softly, just for her ears, "you look beautiful." "Thank you." "You clean up rather well yourself, Deputy Quincy." She was pleased that her voice came out steady, despite the way her heart was racing. "Cole, please. Deputy Quincy makes me sound like my father." He glanced around at the gathered crowd, then back to her. "I realize we only just met this afternoon, but would you do me the honor of dancing with me?" The musicians had just started a waltz, couples moving onto the floor in pairs. Josephine nodded, setting down the pitcher she had been holding. Cole offered his arm and led her to the center of the room. When he placed one hand on her waist and took her other hand in his, she felt that same electric connection from earlier, as if something clicked into place. They began to move together, and Josephine was surprised to find that Cole was an excellent dancer, leading her smoothly across the floor. "Where did a cowboy learn to waltz?" she asked, smiling up at him. "My mother insisted all her children learn proper manners and dancing, said you never knew when you might need them." His thumb traced small circles on her waist, a gesture that sent shivers through her despite the warmth of the evening. "I am grateful for her insistence right about now. You have siblings, 2 brothers and a sister, all back in Texas with their own families now." A shadow passed over his face. "I have not seen them in a few years. Do you miss them?" "Every day. But sometimes a man needs to make his own way, find his own path." His eyes met hers. "I am beginning to think my path led me here for a reason." Before Josephine could respond, the song ended. There was a smattering of applause, and then the musicians struck up a livelier tune. Couples began a more energetic dance, but Cole led Josephine off the floor toward the back door of the church. "Let us get some air," he suggested, and she nodded, grateful for the chance to escape the crowd and the curious eyes that had been following them. Outside, the night was cooler, a gentle breeze rustling through the cottonwood trees that grew behind the church. Stars filled the sky, more stars than Josephine had ever seen during her years in Boston. Cole stood close beside her, not touching but near enough that she was aware of every breath he took. "Can I ask you something?" Cole said after a moment of comfortable silence. "Of course." "Why did you really throw yourself in front of that horse today? And please do not say it was just because you could not stand by. There was more to it than that. I saw it in your eyes." Josephine was quiet for a moment, considering her answer. "When I was 12 years old, I had a younger brother. Samuel. He was only 6. She paused, the memories still painful even after all these years. "We were at the park one day and he ran into the street chasing a ball. A carriage was coming and I froze. I just stood there and watched it happen. By the time I screamed, by the time I tried to move, it was too late." "Josephine, I am so sorry." Cole's voice was gentle, his hand finding hers in the darkness. "My parents never blamed me, but I blamed myself. I still do. So when I saw Tommy standing there today, frozen just like I had been frozen all those years ago, I knew I could not let it happen again. I could not stand by and watch another child die because I was too scared to move." "You were just a child yourself," Cole said softly. "What happened to your brother was not your fault. Perhaps not. But saving Tommy today, it felt like a small piece of redemption, like maybe I could finally forgive myself." She turned to face him, surprised to find tears on her cheeks. "I am sorry. I do not know why I am telling you all this. We barely know each other. Sometimes the easiest person to talk to is someone new, someone without preconceived notions." Cole reached up and gently wiped the tears from her face with his thumb. "Thank you for trusting me with your story." They stood there in the moonlight, and Josephine felt something shift between them, something deeper than simple attraction. It was as if Cole could see past the walls she had built around herself, past the cheerful schoolteacher everyone else knew, to the broken girl still mourning her brother. "Can I tell you something now?" Cole asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yes. When I saw you throw yourself in front of that horse, when I realized what you were about to do, my heart stopped. I have never moved so fast in my life. All I could think was that I had to get to you, had to save you." His hand was still on her cheek, his thumb tracing the line of her jaw. "I have been drifting for years, Josephine, never staying in one place long enough to matter, never letting anyone get close. But from the moment I pulled you into my arms today, something changed. It was like I had been asleep and suddenly woke up." "Cole, wait, let me finish." He took a deep breath. "I know this is crazy, I know we just met. But I need you to know that when I asked you to protect that boy today, what I really wanted to say was protect my heart, because I think I am already falling for you." Josephine's breath caught. It was crazy. It was completely insane. They had known each other for mere hours. And yet, as she stood there looking into his eyes, feeling the warmth of his hand against her skin, she knew exactly what he meant because she felt it too. That sense of recognition, of coming home, of finding something she had not even known she was looking for. "I feel it too," she whispered. "I thought I was losing my mind." Cole smiled then, a real smile that transformed his entire face. "Maybe we are both crazy. Maybe." Josephine found herself smiling back. "But I think I am all right with that." He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. But she did not want to. She had never wanted anything less. When his lips met hers, soft and tentative at first, then deepening as she responded, Josephine felt like she was flying. Her hands came up to rest on his chest, feeling the rapid beat of his heart beneath her palms. His arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her closer, and she went willingly. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Cole rested his forehead against hers. "I should probably take you back inside before people start talking." "Let them talk," Josephine said, surprising herself with her boldness. Cole laughed, a rich, warm sound that made her smile. "You are something special, Josephine Grant." They returned to the social hand in hand, and if anyone found it strange that the new deputy and the schoolteacher's assistant were suddenly inseparable, they kept their opinions to themselves. Cole stayed by her side for the rest of the evening, helping her serve refreshments, dancing with her twice more, and engaging in pleasant conversation with the townsfolk who came to introduce themselves. Sheriff Dalton, a grizzled man in his 50s with kind eyes, pulled Cole aside at one point. Josephine tried not to eavesdrop, but she could not help overhearing parts of their conversation. "You are doing good work so far, Quincy," the sheriff said. "That quick thinking today with the horse showed me I made the right choice hiring you, and I see you have made a friend in Miss Grant. She is good people, that one, been through a lot in her young life. I am learning that, sir. Just treat her right, you hear. This town is protective of its own, and Josephine is well loved here." "I understand, sir. And I have no intention of doing anything but treating her with the utmost respect." The sheriff nodded, seemingly satisfied, and clapped Cole on the shoulder before wandering off to talk with Reverend Thompson. As the evening wound down and people began to leave, Cole walked Josephine home to the small house she shared with her aunt on the edge of town. The night was peaceful, the only sounds the distant howl of a coyote and their footsteps on the dusty road. "Thank you for tonight," Josephine said as they reached her gate. A lamp glowed in the window, indicating her aunt was still awake. "I cannot remember the last time I enjoyed myself so much." The pleasure was all mine. Cole reached out and tucked a stray curl behind her ear. Can I see you again? Perhaps take you to dinner tomorrow evening? I would like that very much. Good. He smiled, then glanced at the house. I should let you go before your aunt comes out with a shotgun. Josephine laughed. Aunt Margaret is not quite that protective, but yes, I should go in. She hesitated, then rose on her tiptoes and pressed a quick kiss to his cheek. Good night, Cole. Good night, Josephine. Sweet dreams. She slipped through the gate and up the path to the house, turning once to wave. Cole stood there until she was safely inside, then headed back toward town where he had a room at the boarding house. Inside, Aunt Margaret was waiting in the parlor, her knitting in her lap but her eyes sharp. She was a tall woman with graying hair and a no-nonsense demeanor, but Josephine knew her heart was kind. So, Margaret said, setting down her knitting, this is the young man everyone is talking about, the deputy who saved you today. We saved each other, really. Josephine hung her shawl on the hook by the door and joined her aunt in the parlor. His name is Cole Quincy. And he walked you home. I saw you through the window. Girl, do not try to hide that smile. But Margaret was smiling too. He seems like a decent young man from what I hear. Sheriff Dalton speaks highly of him. He is wonderful, Aunt Margaret. I know it is fast. I know I barely know him, but sometimes the heart knows before the head catches up, Margaret finished. I understand, dear. That is how it was with your uncle, God rest his soul. I knew the moment I met him that he was the one, even though everyone said we were rushing into things. She reached over and patted Josephine's hand. Just be careful, that is all I ask. Guard your heart even as you open it. I will, I promise. Josephine kissed her aunt's cheek. I am going to bed. Good night. In her small bedroom, Josephine changed into her nightgown and brushed out her hair, but she was far too excited to sleep. She kept replaying the day in her mind, from that terrifying moment with the horse to the magical feeling of dancing in Cole's arms, to that kiss behind the church that had set her whole body on fire. Protect my heart, he had said. The words echoed in her mind as she finally drifted off to sleep, a smile on her lips. The next morning, Josephine woke early and helped at the school as usual. The children were full of questions about the previous day's excitement, and little Tommy Henderson was treated like a celebrity by his classmates. Josephine deflected their questions with gentle patience, redirecting them to their lessons. During the lunch break, one of the older girls, Susan, lingered behind. She was 14 and entirely too interested in matters of the heart. Miss Grant, is it true that the new deputy is courting you? Susan, where did you hear that? Everyone is talking about it. My mama said you two danced 3 times at the social and that he walked you home. Susan's eyes were wide with romantic interest. Is he handsome? Do you like him? That is quite enough questions for one day, young lady. But Josephine could not help smiling. Now go eat your lunch before afternoon lessons begin. As the day wore on, Josephine found her anticipation building. Cole had said he would take her to dinner, but they had not specified a time. What if he had changed his mind? What if the light of day had made him realize how impulsive they had been? Her worries proved unfounded. As school let out at 3 o'clock, she looked up to find Cole leaning against the fence, his hat tipped low against the afternoon sun. When he saw her, he straightened and smiled, and all her doubts evaporated. Deputy Quincy, what brings you by the school? She asked, unable to suppress her own smile. I was hoping to walk a certain schoolteacher home if she is amenable. I think she might be. Josephine gathered her things and said goodbye to Mrs. Patterson, the head teacher, whose knowing look suggested she had seen Cole waiting outside. They walked slowly through town, in no hurry to reach her house. Cole told her about his morning, A relatively quiet day involving paperwork and making rounds through town. She told him about the children's questions and their excitement over yesterday's events. "So the whole town is talking about us," Cole said with amusement. "I am afraid so. Small towns are like that. Not much happens here, so when something does, it becomes the main topic of conversation for weeks." "Does it bother you? People talking?" Josephine considered the question. "Not really. Let them talk. I know what I feel and I do not need everyone else's approval." She glanced at him. "Does it bother you?" "Not in the slightest. I am actually rather proud to be seen with the bravest woman in Winslow." He took her hand, lacing their fingers together. "Now, about tonight. There is a restaurant near the hotel that serves a decent steak, or if you prefer, we could have a picnic. I know a spot just outside of town with a good view of the sunset." "A picnic sounds lovely." "Good. I will come by for you at 6 if that suits you." "Perfect." They had reached her house, and Cole lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her knuckles. The gesture was old-fashioned and utterly charming. "Until tonight, then." Josephine practically floated into the house, where Aunt Margaret took one look at her face and shook her head with a smile. "You have it bad, child." "I know," Josephine said happily. "Is that not wonderful?" The hours until 6 o'clock seemed to drag endlessly. Josephine changed clothes 3 times before settling on a simple yellow dress that her aunt assured her was perfect for a picnic. She left her hair down, held back from her face with combs, and applied just a touch of color to her lips. Cole arrived promptly at 6, riding a handsome chestnut mare and leading a gentle gray gelding for Josephine. He had changed into dark pants and a blue shirt that matched his eyes perfectly, and wore a genuine smile that made her heart skip a beat. "You look beautiful," he said, helping her mount the gray. "I borrowed this horse from the livery. Pete assured me she is gentle and perfect for a lady." They rode out of town heading north, following a trail that wound through red rock formations and scattered juniper trees. The evening was perfect, warm but not too hot, with a gentle breeze that carried the scent of sage. After about 20 minutes, Cole led them to a spot overlooking a wide valley. The view was spectacular, the setting sun painting the sky in shades of orange, pink, and purple. Cole spread a blanket on the ground and unpacked the picnic basket he had brought. There was fried chicken, fresh bread, cheese, apples, and even a small cake. "Mrs. Miller at the bakery helped me put this together. I told her I wanted to impress you, and she seemed to take it as a personal challenge." Josephine laughed, settling onto the blanket. "Well, consider me impressed. This is wonderful." They ate and talked, sharing stories from their pasts. Cole told her about growing up on a ranch in Texas, learning to ride before he could properly walk, and the day he decided to strike out on his own. Josephine told him about her childhood in Boston, the shock of moving to the Arizona Territory, and how she had fallen in love with the desert despite its harsh beauty. "You ever want to go back east?" Cole asked, reaching for an apple and cutting it into slices with his pocket knife. "Sometimes I miss certain things. The green of spring, the changing leaves in fall, the ocean. But this is my home now. I cannot imagine leaving." She accepted an apple slice from him. "What about you? Will you stay in Winslow, or is this just another stop on your journey?" "A few days ago, I would have said I would stay until I got restless and then move on. That is what I have always done." He set down the knife and turned to face her fully. "But that was before I met you. Now I find myself thinking about putting down roots, about building something permanent. That is a new feeling for me." "Cole," Josephine said softly, reaching out to touch his hand. "I do not want you to feel like you have to change your whole life because of me. We barely know each other." "That is where you are wrong. I am not changing who I am because of you. You are helping me become who I was always meant to be." He turned his hand over, capturing hers. I have been running from something for a long time, Josephine. I think I was running from the idea of settling down, of having responsibilities and people depending on me. But yesterday, when I saw you protecting that child, when I held you in my arms, I realized that having someone to protect, someone to care for, is not a burden. It is a gift. Tears pricked at Josephine's eyes. I spent so long punishing myself for my brother's death, for not being fast enough or brave enough. I closed myself off from people, from the possibility of love, because I was afraid of losing someone else. But you make me want to be brave again. You make me want to take that risk. Cole reached up and cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs gently wiping away the tears that had spilled over. Then let us be brave together. Let us take this risk together, whatever it may bring. He kissed her then, soft and sweet at first, then deeper as she leaned into him. Her arms wrapped around his neck, pulling him closer, and he held her as if she was something precious and breakable. When they finally pulled apart, the sun had set completely, stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. "We should head back before it gets too dark," Cole said reluctantly, though he made no move to release her. "I suppose you are right." Josephine rested her head against his shoulder for a moment, breathing in the scent of him, memorizing this perfect moment. The ride back to town was leisurely, their horses walking side by side, close enough that their legs occasionally brushed against each other. They talked about inconsequential things, comfortable in each other's company, already developing the easy familiarity of a long-established couple despite having known each other for barely a day. At her gate, Cole helped her dismount, his hands lingering at her waist. "Thank you for tonight. For every moment of today, actually. Thank you for the picnic, for the conversation, for everything." Josephine smiled up at him. "When can I see you again? How about tomorrow? I have the afternoon off. Maybe we could go riding again, or I could show you around some of the areas I have been patrolling." "I would love that." She hesitated, then asked, "Cole, are we really doing this? Starting something together, if you will have me, yes." "I know it is fast. I know people will say we are crazy, but I have never been more certain of anything in my life." His eyes were serious, sincere. "I am not saying I expect you to marry me tomorrow or anything like that. I just want the chance to court you properly, to see where this connection between us leads." "I want that too," Josephine said, "more than anything." They said goodnight with a lingering kiss that left Josephine breathless, and then she watched him ride away into the darkness before heading inside. Aunt Margaret was already in bed, so Josephine crept quietly to her room and got ready for sleep. But once again, sleep was slow to come as her mind replayed every moment of the evening, every word Cole had said, every touch and kiss they had shared. The next few weeks passed in a blissful haze. True to his word, Cole courted Josephine properly. They went on picnics and rides, attended church services together, and spent countless hours simply talking, learning everything about each other. Cole proved to be attentive and thoughtful, always finding small ways to make her smile. He brought her wildflowers picked from the desert, carved her a small wooden bird that sat on her windowsill, and once surprised her with a book of poetry he had ordered special from a supplier in Flagstaff. For her part, Josephine found herself falling more deeply in love with each passing day. She loved the way Cole's face lit up when he saw her, the way he listened intently when she talked about her students, the way he made her feel safe and cherished and seen. She loved his integrity, the way he took his job as deputy seriously, earning the respect of everyone in town. She loved his sense of humor, the rare but genuine smiles he gave her, the way he could make her laugh even on difficult days. They also faced challenges. One afternoon, about a month after they had met, Josephine was walking home from school when she encountered three rough-looking men outside the saloon. They were clearly drunk, and one of them made a lewd comment as she passed. Josephine ignored them and kept walking, but one of the men grabbed her arm. "Hey, I was talking to you, pretty lady. Do not be rude." "Let go of me," Josephine said firmly, trying to pull her arm free. "Now that is no way to treat a friendly gesture," the man said, his breath reeking of whiskey. His companions laughed, crowding closer. "I believe the lady asked you to let her go." Cole's voice cut through the commotion like a knife. He stood a few feet away, his hand resting casually on his gun belt, but there was nothing casual about the steel in his eyes. The drunk man released Josephine's arm immediately, raising his hands. "No trouble here, deputy, just having a little fun. Fun is over. You three need to move along, now." Cole's tone left no room for argument. The men shuffled off, muttering under their breath but not stupid enough to challenge an armed lawman. Once they were gone, Cole rushed to Josephine's side, his earlier calm replaced by concern. "Did they hurt you? Are you all right?" "I am fine, just a little shaken." Josephine rubbed her arm where the man had grabbed her. It would probably bruise, but she was unhurt otherwise. "Thank you for stepping in. I should have gotten there sooner. I saw them harassing you from across the street." Cole's jaw was tight with anger, though she knew it was not directed at her. "Come on, let me walk you home." As they walked, Cole seemed distracted, troubled. When they reached her gate, Josephine stopped him from leaving. "What is wrong? And do not say nothing. I can see something is bothering you." Cole was quiet for a moment, then said, "Seeing those men grab you, seeing you in danger, it brought back that first day. The horse, the fear I felt that something terrible was going to happen to you." He met her eyes. "Josephine, I cannot lose you. The thought of anything happening to you terrifies me in a way I have never experienced before." "Nothing is going to happen to me," Josephine said gently, taking his hands. "I am fine. You protected me just like you always do. But I cannot always be there. And this town, this territory, it can be dangerous. People get hurt, they die, and he broke off, shaking his head. "I am sorry. I am not making sense." "You are afraid," Josephine said, understanding dawning. "You are afraid of losing me the way I was afraid after losing my brother." Cole nodded slowly. "I never let myself care about anyone before because caring means risking loss. But with you, I cannot help but care. You have become everything to me, Josephine. You are the reason I wake up in the morning, the reason I do my job, the reason I want to be a better man. And that terrifies me because now I have something to lose." Josephine stepped closer, reaching up to cup his face in her hands. "Listen to me, Cole Quincy. Life is dangerous. Bad things happen and we cannot control that, but we cannot let fear stop us from living, from loving. I learned that lesson the hard way and I refuse to let it rule my life anymore. Yes, something could happen to me, or something could happen to you, but we could also have 50 beautiful years together. We could build a life, have children, grow old side by side. And I would rather take that risk, live every day to the fullest with you than play it safe and miss out on what we could have." "You are braver than I am," Cole said softly. "No, I am just as scared as you are, but I think we are stronger together than we are apart." She smiled. "Besides, I have you to protect me, remember, and I have your heart to protect. I take that responsibility very seriously." Cole pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. "What did I do to deserve you? You saved me," Josephine said simply, "in more ways than one." That evening, Cole stayed for dinner at Aunt Margaret's invitation. The older woman had grown fond of Cole over the past weeks, and she approved of the match. Over pot roast and potatoes, they talked about town matters, recent news, and Margaret's plans to expand her garden next spring. After dinner, Margaret excused herself to visit a neighbor, leaving Cole and Josephine alone in the parlor. They sat close together on the settee, Josephine's hand in Cole's, comfortable in the peaceful silence. "I have been thinking," Cole said after a while, "about the future, about what I want my life to look like." "And what do you want it to look like?" "I want a home, not just a room at the boarding house. A real home with furniture and curtains and a garden. I want to wake up every morning next to the woman I love. I want children someday, a whole house full of them if we are blessed. I want to put down roots so deep that nothing could pull them up." He turned to face her. "I want all of that with you, Josephine, if you will have me." Josephine's heart was pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. "Are you asking what I think you are asking?" "Not yet," Cole said with a small smile. "It has only been a month and I want to do this properly. I want to court you for a while longer, make sure you are absolutely certain about me. I want to save up money for a ring, for a house, for everything you deserve. But I wanted you to know my intentions, to know that this is not just a passing fancy for me. You are my future, Josephine Grant, if you will have me." "I will have you," Josephine said, tears streaming down her face. "Of course I will have you. Now, next month, next year, it does not matter when. The answer will always be yes." Cole kissed her then, deep and passionate, pouring all his love and promise into the connection between them. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Josephine rested her head on his shoulder, feeling more content than she had ever thought possible. "When did you know?" she asked softly. "When did you know you loved me? That first day when I pulled you out of the way of that horse." Something in my chest shifted, like a key turning in a lock. "But I knew for certain that night at the social, when you trusted me with your story about your brother. That was when I realized I would do anything to keep you safe, to make you happy." He pressed a kiss to her hair. "What about you?" "The same night, I think. When you said protect my heart. It was such an honest, vulnerable thing to say, and I knew then that you were someone special, someone I could trust with my own heart." She smiled. "Though I might have started falling even earlier, when you first looked at me with those gray eyes of yours." They spent the rest of the evening wrapped in each other's arms, talking about their dreams for the future. Cole wanted to build a house on a piece of land just outside town, somewhere with room for horses and maybe some cattle. Josephine talked about her hope to open a school of her own someday, a place where all children could learn regardless of their family's ability to pay. They talked about how many children they wanted, both agreeing that 3 or 4 seemed like a good number. When Aunt Margaret returned home, she found them still on the settee, Josephine asleep with her head on Cole's shoulder, and Cole watching her with such love in his eyes that Margaret had to dab at her own eyes with her handkerchief. "You should go, young man," she said quietly. "Let the girl get proper rest in her own bed." Cole nodded, carefully extracting himself from Josephine's sleeping form. She stirred as he stood, her eyes opening sleepily. "You are leaving. Your aunt is right, you need to sleep. I will see you tomorrow, I promise." "Tomorrow," Josephine agreed, smiling as her eyes drifted closed again. Cole and Margaret stepped outside, the older woman fixing him with a knowing look. "You love her." "With everything I have, madam." "Good, because that girl has been through enough heartache in her life. She deserves someone who will cherish her, who will protect her heart even as she protects yours." "That is exactly what I intend to do, madam, for the rest of my life if she will have me," Margaret smiled. "I think you can count on that, Deputy Quincy. Now go on, get some rest yourself. Something tells me you are going to need all your energy to keep up with my niece." Cole laughed and tipped his hat, heading back toward town with a lighter heart than he had ever known. He had found home, not in a place but in a person, and he would spend every day earning the gift she had given him. The months that followed were among the happiest of both their lives. Summer turned to fall and fall to winter, though the Arizona winters were mild compared to what Josephine remembered from Boston. Cole was true to his word, courting her properly while working hard to save money for their future. He had found a piece of land for sale on the outskirts of town, 5 acres with a small stream running through it, perfect for building a home on Christmas Eve. 6 months after they first met, Cole arrived at Margaret's house with a small wrapped package. Snow was falling lightly, an unusual sight in Winslow but magical nonetheless. Josephine met him at the door wearing a red dress, her hair pinned up with ribbons, looking so beautiful that Cole lost his train of thought for a moment. "Are you coming in?" Josephine asked with amusement, noting how he was just standing there staring at her. "Right, yes, sorry." Cole stepped inside, stamping snow from his boots. Margaret had gone to stay with friends for the evening, giving them privacy. A small Christmas tree stood in the corner of the parlor, decorated with handmade ornaments and strings of popcorn. They exchanged gifts by the light of the fire. Josephine gave Cole a new leather vest she had spent weeks making, carefully tooled with a design of horses and mountains. Cole was clearly touched, running his fingers over the intricate pattern. "This is incredible. You made this." "With some help from Mr. Preston at the leather shop. Do you like it?" "I love it. I will treasure it always." He held out the package he had brought. "Your turn." Josephine unwrapped the gift carefully, gasping when she saw what was inside. It was a locket, silver and delicate, with a tiny engraving of a bird on the front. She opened it with trembling fingers and found 2 spaces inside for photographs. "It is beautiful, Cole. I have never seen anything so lovely." "Look on the back," he said softly. She turned it over and saw an inscription, "Forever brave, forever mine." Tears filled her eyes as she looked up at him. "Cole, I do not know what to say. Say you will marry me." He dropped to one knee, pulling a ring from his pocket. It was simple but elegant, a small diamond set in a silver band. "I know I said I wanted to wait, to court you properly for longer, but I cannot wait anymore. I love you, Josephine Grant. You are my best friend, my partner, the bravest woman I have ever known. Will you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" "Yes," Josephine said through her tears. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." Cole slipped the ring on her finger, then stood and pulled her into his arms, kissing her with all the love and passion he had been holding back. When they finally pulled apart, both laughing and crying at once, Josephine held out her hand to admire the ring. "It is perfect. You are perfect." "How did I get so lucky?" "I am the lucky one," Cole insisted. "You saved me, Josephine. You gave me a reason to stop running, a reason to build a life. I will spend every day trying to deserve you." "You already do," she said, pulling him down for another kiss. They set the wedding date for early spring, wanting to give Josephine time to finish out the school year and for Cole to make progress on building their house. The next few months were a flurry of activity. Cole spent every spare moment working on the house, and many of the townsmen volunteered to help, appreciating the young deputy who had proven himself to be honest and capable. Josephine and Aunt Margaret worked on her wedding dress, a simple but elegant white gown with lace sleeves and a long train. She also spent time gathering household items, accepting gifts from townswomen eager to help the young couple start their life together. On March 15th, 1884, under a cloudless blue sky, Cole Quincy and Josephine Grant were married in the small white church where they had first danced together. Reverend Thompson performed the ceremony, and it seemed like the entire town turned out to witness their vows. Josephine walked down the aisle on Aunt Margaret's arm, her eyes locked on Cole waiting at the altar. He looked so handsome in his best suit, his dark hair neatly combed, his gray eyes shining with love and tears. When she reached him, He took her hand and squeezed it gently, as if to reassure himself that this was real. The ceremony was simple but heartfelt. They exchanged traditional vows, promising to love, honor, and cherish each other until death parted them. When Reverend Thompson finally said, "You may kiss your bride," Cole cupped Josephine's face gently and kissed her with such tenderness that many in attendance had to dab at their eyes. The celebration afterward was joyous, with music and dancing and more food than anyone could possibly eat. Cole and Josephine danced their first dance as husband and wife, and as they moved across the floor, Josephine thought back to that first night, to the way she had felt in his arms even then. "What are you thinking about?" Cole asked, noting her smile. "About how much has changed since we met. About how that terrifying moment with the horse led to the happiest day of my life." "Mine too," Cole agreed. "Though every day with you is the happiest day, I have a feeling that will not change." As the sun set, the newlyweds said their goodbyes and rode out to their new home. The house was small but sturdy, 2 bedrooms and a main room with a kitchen area built with loving care. Cole had even made furniture, working late into the night to have everything ready. He carried Josephine over the threshold, both of them laughing, and set her down gently in the middle of their new home. Candles were lit, casting a warm glow over everything. Cole had even picked wildflowers and put them in a jar on the table. "Welcome home, Mrs. Quincy," Cole said softly, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Mrs. Quincy," Josephine repeated, testing out her new name. "I think I like the sound of that." They spent their wedding night learning each other in new ways, expressing their love without words, building a connection even deeper than what they had already shared. Afterward, wrapped in each other's arms, Josephine traced the scar on Cole's cheekbone. "How did you get this?" she asked. She had wondered before but never asked. "A horse kicked me when I was 15. I was not paying attention, got too close to its back legs. My father said I was lucky it did not kill me." Cole smiled at the memory. "I learned to be more careful around animals after that." "I am glad you survived," Josephine said, kissing the scar. "Otherwise I never would have met you." "Fate has a funny way of working out," Cole agreed. "All those years I spent drifting, all the towns I passed through, and somehow I ended up here at exactly the right moment to meet you." "Makes a man believe in divine intervention. Or destiny," Josephine suggested. "Maybe we were always meant to find each other." "I like that idea." Cole pulled her closer, content in a way he had never imagined possible. "Whatever force brought us together, I am grateful for it every single day." Their first year of marriage was challenging but wonderful. Cole continued his work as deputy, and Josephine took a position as head teacher when Mrs. Patterson retired. They worked hard during the day and came home to each other at night, building a life together one day at a time. There were difficult moments. In August, a group of outlaws passed through Winslow, robbing the bank and shooting Sheriff Dalton. The sheriff survived, but the injury forced him to retire. Cole was promoted to sheriff, a position that came with greater responsibility and danger. Josephine tried not to worry every time he pinned on his badge, but it was hard not to think about all the things that could go wrong. "I am careful," Cole assured her whenever she voiced her concerns. "And I always come home to you. Nothing will keep me from that." True to his word, Cole was cautious but effective in his role as sheriff. He hired 2 new deputies and worked to make Winslow safer for everyone. His integrity and fairness earned him respect throughout the territory, and crime in the area decreased significantly under his watch. In the spring of 1885, Josephine discovered she was pregnant. Cole's reaction when she told him was everything she could have hoped for. He picked her up and spun her around, laughing and crying at the same time, then set her down gently as if afraid he might have hurt her. "We are going to have a baby," he kept repeating, wonder in his voice. "A baby." "Are you happy?" Josephine asked, though she could see the answer in his face. Happy does not even begin to describe it. Terrified, thrilled, grateful, blessed, all of those and more. He knelt down and placed his hand on her still flat stomach. "Hello in there, little one. This is your father. I cannot wait to meet you." The pregnancy was relatively easy, though Josephine had to stop teaching after 6 months when her condition became too obvious. She spent her time preparing for the baby, sewing tiny clothes and blankets, reading every book on childbirth and childcare she could find. Cole was attentive and worried, constantly asking if she needed anything, if she was comfortable, if the baby was moving enough. Josephine found his concern endearing, even when it bordered on excessive. On a cold December morning, after 12 hours of labor with Aunt Margaret and the midwife in attendance, Josephine gave birth to a healthy baby boy. Cole, who had been pacing outside like a caged animal, rushed in the moment he was allowed. He took one look at his son, tiny and perfect with a shock of dark hair, and broke down in tears. "He is perfect," Cole whispered, carefully taking the baby from the midwife. "Absolutely perfect." "What should we name him?" Josephine asked, exhausted but glowing with happiness. Cole thought for a moment, then said, "What about Samuel, after your brother, so his memory lives on?" Fresh tears sprang to Josephine's eyes. "You would do that, of course. Your brother was loved, and he deserves to be remembered. If our son grows up to be even half as loved as Samuel was, he will be a lucky boy indeed." They named him Samuel Cole Quincy, and he was indeed loved beyond measure. Cole proved to be a devoted father, waking up for night feedings, changing diapers without complaint, and spending hours just watching his son sleep. Josephine had never seen anything more beautiful than the sight of her husband cradling their baby, humming lullabies in his deep voice. Life settled into a new rhythm. Cole continued his work as sheriff, but made sure to be home for dinner every night. Josephine cared for Samuel during the day and helped Cole with administrative work in the evenings when the baby was sleeping. They hired a young woman from town, Mary, to help with household chores so Josephine could rest and recover. Samuel was 6 months old when they received a telegram from Texas. Cole's father had died, and his family wanted him to come home for the funeral. It was a difficult decision, but they ultimately chose to make the journey. It would be Samuel's first time meeting his extended family, and Cole needed closure with his father, a man he had not seen in nearly 5 years. The trip to Texas took a week by train and stagecoach, but it was worth it to see the joy on the faces of Cole's family when they arrived. His mother wept at the sight of her son, and his siblings crowded around to meet Josephine and their nephew. Despite the sad circumstances of the visit, it was a healing time for Cole, allowing him to reconnect with his roots and introduce his wife and son to the people who had shaped him. On their last night in Texas, sitting on the porch of his childhood home with Samuel asleep in her arms, Josephine asked Cole if he ever regretted leaving. "Never," he said without hesitation. "This place will always be part of me, but Winslow is my home now. You and Samuel are my home. I would not trade what we have for anything in the world." They returned to Arizona in early summer, and life continued its pleasant course. Samuel grew into a curious, energetic toddler who kept them both on their toes. In the fall of 1887, Josephine discovered she was pregnant again, and this time Cole took the news with slightly more calm, though he was no less excited. Their daughter was born in April of 1888, an easy birth compared to Samuel's. They named her Margaret Rose Quincy, after Aunt Margaret, who had passed away peacefully in her sleep just 2 months before. The older woman had lived to meet her great niece, holding the baby for a few precious minutes before her death, and had pronounced her beautiful. With 2 children now, life became even busier but no less joyful. Samuel adored his baby sister, always wanting to help care for her. Cole expanded the house, adding 2 more bedrooms and a larger kitchen. Josephine opened a small school in town, teaching children 3 days a week while Mary watched Margaret and Samuel. Years passed in a blur of birthdays and holidays, first steps and first words, scraped knees and childhood illnesses. In 1891, they welcomed another son, Thomas, and in 1894, a final daughter, Eleanor. Their house was full of noise and laughter, toys scattered everywhere, and a kind of chaos that Josephine would not trade for all the peace and quiet in the world. Cole continued as sheriff, though he hired more deputies as he got older, letting younger men handle the dangerous work while he focused on administration and training. He was respected throughout the territory, known for his fairness and integrity. On a warm evening in the summer of 1900, Cole and Josephine sat on their porch watching their children play in the yard. Samuel was 14 now, tall and serious like his father. Margaret was 12, with her mother's hazel eyes and fierce spirit. Thomas was 9, always laughing and getting into mischief. And Eleanor, at 6, was the baby of the family, sweet and gentle. "Can you believe it has been 17 years since we met?" Josephine asked, her hand in Cole's. "Feels like yesterday and a lifetime ago all at once," Cole replied. He had some gray in his hair now, lines around his eyes, but he was still the handsome cowboy who had saved her all those years ago. "Do you remember what I said that first night, at the social, 'Protect my heart'?" Josephine quoted. "How could I forget? Those words changed my life." "Mine too." Cole brought her hand to his lips. "You have protected my heart better than I ever could have imagined. You have given me a life beyond my wildest dreams." "We gave each other that life," Josephine corrected. "We built it together, day by day, moment by moment." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the desert they both loved, surrounded by the sounds of their children's laughter. It had not always been easy. They had faced challenges and losses, difficult times and scary moments. But through it all, they had each other, and that had made all the difference. Samuel called out that dinner was ready, and the family gathered around the large table Cole had built years ago, big enough to seat all 6 of them comfortably. As they held hands for grace, Josephine looked around at her family, at the life she and Cole had created, and felt overwhelming gratitude. After dinner, when the children were getting ready for bed, Cole pulled Josephine aside. "I have something for you." He handed her a small wrapped package, and she opened it to find a new photograph for her locket, the one he had given her that Christmas Eve so long ago. The photograph showed their whole family, taken just last week by a traveling photographer. She opened the locket and placed the new photo inside, next to the old one of her and Cole on their wedding day. "Perfect," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "We are not perfect," Cole said, wrapping his arms around her, "but we are perfect for each other, and that is all that matters." That night, lying in bed with Cole's arms around her, Josephine thought about that terrified young woman who had thrown herself in front of a horse to save a child. She thought about the lonely cowboy who had been drifting through life until he found a reason to stay. And she thought about the moment their lives had collided, setting them both on a path neither could have predicted but neither would ever regret. "I love you," she whispered into the darkness. "I love you too," Cole replied, his voice warm and certain. "Today, tomorrow, and every day after that. Forever." Outside, the Arizona night was peaceful, stars glittering in the endless sky. Inside the small house on the edge of Winslow, a family slept, safe and loved and together. And in the morning, they would wake up and do it all again, building their life one beautiful day at a time. The years continued to roll by with the steady rhythm of a life well lived. Samuel graduated from school and decided to follow in his father's footsteps, training as a deputy in a neighboring town. Margaret shocked everyone by announcing she wanted to become a doctor, an unusual choice for a woman but one her parents supported wholeheartedly. Thomas showed an aptitude for building things, often helping the town carpenter. And Alina discovered a love for teaching, frequently helping her mother at the school. In 1905, 22 years after that fateful day when a horse had charged down the street, Cole decided it was time to retire from law enforcement. He was 47 now, and though he was still capable, he wanted to spend more time with his family while he still could. The town held a celebration in his honor, recognizing his decades of service and the positive impact he had made on Winslow. Josephine had tears in her eyes as she watched the town thank her husband, praising his courage and fairness. She thought about how far they had both come, from two lonely people finding each other in a moment of crisis to building a legacy that would outlast them both. After his retirement, Cole took up ranching more seriously, expanding their small herd of cattle and horses. He also started teaching young men the skills he had learned over the years, passing on his knowledge to the next generation. Josephine continued teaching but cut back her hours, wanting to enjoy her time with Cole now that he was home more. In 1908, Samuel married a lovely young woman named Catherine, and in 1909, they welcomed Cole and Josephine's first grandchild, a little girl they named Hope. Holding his granddaughter for the first time, Cole looked at Josephine with wonder in his eyes. "Can you believe we are grandparents?" he asked, his voice thick with emotion. "I can barely believe we are us," Josephine replied, smiling through her tears. "Sometimes I still feel like that young woman who threw herself in front of a horse, and you are still the cowboy who saved her. In all the ways that matter, we still are those people. We just have a few more wrinkles and a lot more wisdom." Cole carefully passed the baby to Josephine, watching as she cradled their granddaughter with practiced ease. "We did good, Josie. Our children are happy and healthy, starting families of their own. We built something lasting." Over the next few years, their family continued to grow. Margaret finished her medical training and became one of the few female doctors in the territory, setting up practice in Flagstaff. Thomas married his sweetheart and took over the carpentry business when his mentor retired. Alina became a teacher like her mother, taking over Josephine's position at the school when Josephine finally retired in 1912. In the summer of 1913, for their 30th wedding anniversary, their children surprised them with a party. The whole family gathered at the ranch, including 5 grandchildren now, with another on the way. There was music and dancing, food and laughter, and stories told about the old days. As the evening wound down, Samuel stood up to make a toast. "To my parents who taught us all what true love looks like. Dad, you showed us how to be strong and gentle at the same time. Mom, you showed us how to be brave and kind. Together, you showed us that love is not just a feeling but a choice you make every single day. Thank you for choosing each other and for building a family we are all proud to be part of." Cole and Josephine stood together, their hands clasped, as their children and grandchildren raised their glasses. Josephine looked at the faces around her, at the family they had created, and felt her heart overflow with gratitude. This was what she had protected that day 30 years ago, not just a child but the possibility of this future, this love, this legacy. Later that night, Cole and Josephine walked out to the spot where he had first proposed, where they had shared that first picnic so many years ago. The valley spread out before them, bathed in moonlight, unchanged by the passage of time. "You remember what you said to me that night?" Cole asked, pulling her close. When I said I wanted you to protect my heart, I said I took that responsibility very seriously. And you have. Every single day for 30 years, you have protected my heart, and I have tried my best to protect yours. He turned her to face him, his hands on her shoulders. I know we are getting older, Josie. I know we do not have as many years ahead of us as we have behind us, but I want you to know that every moment with you has been a gift. Every laugh, every tear, every ordinary day has been extraordinary because I got to share it with you. Josephine reached up and touched his face, tracing the lines that time had etched there. You gave me a reason to be brave again. You showed me that love does not have to mean loss, that opening your heart is worth the risk. I would do it all again, Cole. Every single moment. They stood there under the stars, two people who had found each other in a moment of chaos and had built something beautiful from it. Around them, the desert breathed with life, the same desert that had witnessed their first meeting, their first kiss, their wedding, the births of their children, and all the moments in between. In the years that followed, they continued to build their life together. They watched their grandchildren grow, welcomed more additions to the family, and celebrated milestones both big and small. There were losses too, as is inevitable in any long life. Friends passed away, Josephine's Aunt Margaret's house was sold, and the town they loved changed with the times. But through it all, Cole and Josephine had each other. In 1920, as they approached their 70s, Cole's health began to decline. His heart, which Josephine had protected so well for so many years, was finally wearing out. He spent more time resting, less time working on the ranch, though he never complained. Josephine cared for him with the same fierce devotion she had shown that day she threw herself in front of a horse, determined to protect what she loved. One evening in late spring, sitting on their porch as the sun set, Cole took Josephine's hand. I need you to promise me something. Anything, Josephine said, though fear clutched at her heart. She knew what was coming, had felt it in the way he held her lately, as if he was memorizing the feel of her in his arms. When I am gone, I need you to keep living, not just existing, but really living. Spend time with our children and grandchildren. Keep teaching if it makes you happy. Do not let grief consume you the way you almost did after your brother died. His eyes were serious, pleading. Promise me, Josie. I promise, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. But I need you to promise me something too. Promise me you will fight to stay with me as long as you can. I am not ready to let you go. I will fight with everything I have, Cole promised. For you, I would fight the devil himself. Cole lived for 3 more years, defying the doctor's expectations. They were good years, quiet and peaceful, filled with family visits and quiet moments together. Josephine cherished every sunrise they watched together, every meal they shared, every night she fell asleep in his arms. In the summer of 1923, on a warm July evening, Cole passed away peacefully in his sleep with Josephine beside him. She woke to find him gone, his hand still holding hers, a slight smile on his face as if he had died dreaming of something wonderful. She liked to think he had been dreaming of that first day they met, of pulling her out of danger and into his life. The funeral was attended by what seemed like the entire town of Winslow and beyond. People came from all over the territory to pay their respects to the man who had served them faithfully for so many years. Stories were shared about his kindness, his integrity, his unwavering dedication to justice and fairness. But the most moving tribute came from Josephine herself, who stood at his graveside and spoke through her tears. Cole Quincy was my husband for 40 years. But before that, he was the stranger who saved my life when a horse charged down the street. He was the man who looked at me, and somehow saw past all my walls and fears to the person I really was. He was the man who asked me to protect his heart, and then spent the rest of his life protecting mine." She paused, gathering herself. "He once told me that having someone to care for was not a burden but a gift. He was right. Loving Cole was the greatest gift of my life, and I am grateful for every moment we had together." In the months that followed, Josephine kept her promise. She continued to live, to find joy in her children and grandchildren, to teach occasionally, to tend the garden that Cole had planted for her all those years ago. But she also allowed herself to grieve, to miss him with an ache that never fully went away. She stayed in their house on the ranch, surrounded by memories. The bird he had carved for her still sat on the windowsill. His vest hung in the closet, and she sometimes pressed her face to it, breathing in the faint scent of him that still lingered. The locket he had given her 40 years ago hung around her neck, now holding photographs of their whole family. In 1928, on a clear autumn day, Josephine sat on the porch of the house she and Cole had built together. She was 72 now, still healthy but feeling her years. Her children and grandchildren were coming for Sunday dinner, and she had spent the morning preparing Cole's favorite recipes, cooking them in his memory. As she sat waiting for them to arrive, she thought about the life she had lived. From that terrified young woman in Boston who had lost her brother, to the schoolteacher in Arizona who had thrown herself in front of a horse, to the wife and mother and grandmother she had become. Every choice she had made, every risk she had taken, had led her to this moment. She heard the sound of horses and wagons approaching, the happy voices of her family coming to visit. Rising from her chair with only a slight stiffness in her joints, she walked out to greet them, her face lighting up with genuine joy at the sight of them all. Samuel helped his daughter down from the wagon, the little girl running to hug her grandmother. Margaret arrived with her husband and 3 children. Thomas and his wife brought their 4 boys, all full of energy. And Alina came with her husband and their 2 daughters, the youngest just a baby. They gathered around the table Cole had built, the one that had seen so many family dinners over the years. As Josephine looked around at all these faces, at the family she and Cole had created together, she felt him there with her. In the laughter of the children, in the love that filled the room, in the legacy they had built together. After dinner, Alina found her mother sitting alone on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. She sat down beside her, taking her hand. "Are you all right, Mama?" "I am perfect, sweetheart. Just remembering your father. He loved these family gatherings so much." Josephine smiled, though tears glistened in her eyes. "Sometimes I can almost feel him here, watching over us all." "I am sure he is," Alina said softly. "Mama, can I ask you something? Always. How did you do it? How did you build such a beautiful life with Dad? How did you make it look so easy?" Josephine thought about the question, wanting to give her daughter an honest answer. "It was not always easy. We had our challenges, our disagreements, our moments of doubt. But we chose each other every single day. We protected each other's hearts, even when it was hard. And we never forgot that first moment, that instant when we found each other. That memory was like an anchor, reminding us why we had chosen this path together." She squeezed her daughter's hand. "Love is not just a feeling, Alina. It is a choice, an action, a commitment. Your father and I chose each other, and we kept choosing each other until the day he died. That is the secret, if there is one." Alina hugged her mother, grateful for the wisdom and the example her parents had provided. "I hope I can have what you and Dad had. You can, if you are willing to work for it, and if you are lucky enough to find someone worth working for." Josephine looked out at the desert stretching endlessly before them. "Your father used to say that the best things in life are worth fighting for." He was right about that, as he was right about so many things. Josephine lived for another 7 years, watching her family continue to grow and flourish. She attended weddings and funerals, births and celebrations. She told stories about Cole and their life together to anyone who would listen, making sure their legacy was remembered. And every night before she went to sleep, she touched the locket around her neck and whispered, "I am still protecting your heart, my love." In the spring of 1935, at the age of 79, Josephine passed away quietly in her sleep, in the same bed where Cole had died 12 years before. Her children found her in the morning, a peaceful expression on her face, her hand resting over the locket at her throat. They buried her next to Cole in the cemetery on the hill overlooking Winslow, the town that had been their home for more than half a century. The headstone read, "Josephine Grant Quincy, beloved wife, mother, and grandmother, she lived bravely and loved fiercely." And beneath Cole's name on his stone, the family added an inscription. He asked her to protect his heart, and she did, for a lifetime and beyond. Years later, when their great-grandchildren asked about Cole and Josephine Quincy, about the legendary couple who had helped shape the town of Winslow, the stories would be told. About the schoolteacher who threw herself in front of a runaway horse to save a child. About the cowboy who pulled her out of danger and fell in love with her in an instant. About the words that changed both their lives. "Protect my heart." The house they built still stands, occupied now by one of their descendants. The school where Josephine taught bears her name. And the sheriff's office displays a photograph of Cole Quincy, one of the most respected lawmen in the territory's history. But more than buildings or plaques or photographs, Cole and Josephine's real legacy lives on in the family they created, in the love they modeled, in the example they set of what it means to choose someone and keep choosing them, day after day, year after year, through all the joy and sorrow that life brings. They had found each other in a moment of crisis, two broken people who somehow became whole together. They had built a life from nothing, raised a family, and loved each other with a fierce devotion that inspired everyone who knew them. And in the end, they had proved that true love does exist, that fairy tales can come true, and that sometimes, when you are brave enough to protect someone else's heart, you save your own in the process. The desert winds still blow through Winslow, Arizona, carrying whispers of old stories and ancient wisdom. And on certain evenings, when the sun sets just right and the light hits the valley in that special way, some people swear they can see two figures standing there together, a cowboy and his lady, their hands clasped as they watch over the town and the family they loved, together even in death as they were in life, their hearts finally and forever protected by the greatest force of all, the love they had built together, one brave moment at a time.